Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Casey Keller, Craig Burley and Shaka Hislop. We'll kick things off in the FA Cup. We're at the fifth round stage. Bristol City taking on Manchester City. So in the end, Manchester City get the job done, beating Bristol City by 3-0. Frank Leboeuf joins us to reflect on what happened in that game. Frank, you've been quite critical of Manchester City of late. Did you enjoy that?
No, I mean they did the job. They're very effective. Nothing to be critical about. You know, professionally talking, they exactly did what they had to do to make sure Bristol didn't exist at some point. But why it's always so boring watching them? You know, you're always on your toes because you think something's gonna happen. You have maybe half of the team are among the best players in the world. And then you have Bristol trying something, at the beginning of the game, having some good action. So you say, okay, it's going to be open, it's going to be nice, we're going to see something. And then Manchester City way of playing, make sure that everybody falls asleep, and then they finish you and the team they play against.
Yeah, some of City's games this year, they haven't been the swashbuckling Man City. And maybe that will be more successful for them at the end of the season, both in Europe and domestically, playing a slightly more pedestrian style. But they've just done a job away from home in the FA Cup. They're in the quarter-finals. They win 3-0. It was a little tighter than it should have been. But yeah, I mean, he seemed quite happy about it, Guardiola, when we heard him in his after-match interview.
I think that's the thing. Listen, as much as the score was 3-0, it didn't feel like a 3-0 up until certainly City got the second. It felt like it was going to be a whole lot tighter. I know the criticism around that that's slower style of City's this season is, especially in this season where it's been congested because of the fixtures and the World Cup, etc. You want to see City go out and win it, and then you score 2 or 3 early on, and then you could take your foot off the gas and relax for the rest of the game. Players get rest, you make changes. But for long spells, Bristol City were still in this. And City had to push a little bit harder than maybe they should have. Once Foden scored after, 7 minutes, you thought, OK, it'll be 2 or 3, and then they can coast. But until they got that second goal in, 75th, so somewhere around there, at no point was City coasting. And as a result, it felt a lot harder and probably took a lot more to the players than this game should.
But let's give some credit to Bristol City. I mean, here's a side that was unbeaten in 12 in all competitions in a league that we know is very competitive. Now, Craig mentioned earlier, they got off to a poor start to the season, and probably a reason why they're not going to make the playoffs. But they are a very informed side at home where this is their cup final, playing against Manchester City, and they showed a good representation for the championship.
We should give City 10 out of 10, really, because, for not allowing the game to go to extra time.
Well, yes, that would have been...
If we went into extra time, then we would have given them a real kicking.
Yes, yeah, most definitely. Manchester City, then, still on to do the treble, the FA Cup, the Premier League, and, of course,
bring this up every year,
the Champions League. We
City doing the treble this year, Liverpool doing the quadruple,
yes.
Man United going to do the quadruple.
Yes, yeah, so they're 9-1. To do the treble.
So that's not happening then?
Well, not necessarily. Well, United have 150 to 1.
Are you putting money on it 9-1?
No, I'm not touching that. It's not I'm not touching that because I don't trust them. I don't trust them. Yeah. Especially in the Champions League. I think that's the issue, isn't it? We saw the second half performance against Leipzig, and there are teams that I think just with the experience are stronger than Manchester City. There you are, that's your analysis. There you are. We'll be back. Who needs anyone else?
Hey, that's decided.
We'll be back tomorrow. Live, as normal.
Oh, my goodness. Where do you stand on City's chances in regards to Premier League and Champions League, Shaq? Which is more likely?
I think the Premier League. 2 points behind Arsenal, Arsenal have a game in hand. But City have better City teams than the one we've seen this season have faltered in the Champions League.
Right.
And as much as a lot of Europe's traditional big boys aren't having the best of seasons themselves, I just don't feel City... They've disappointed too often for me to again have faith in them, faith in this version of Manchester City.
Say they win the FA Cup, second in the Premier League, get knocked out of the Champions League in the quarter-finals. How would then you sum up that season?
Disappointing. I think when you look at Man City, you're looking at two main competitions, Champions League and then most importantly, I think most fans will say, you win your domestic competition, you win your league. That's number one. Champions League then is a very close second. FA Cup's like if you're Fulham or if you're a team that hasn't won something in a while, or you're a big boy, that's a icing. But I think Champions League is that elusive. And you look at Bayern Munich right now, you look at Real Madrid, you look at some of the teams that are left in there that you think might be a little bit better poised than a Man City that seems to have something in their head when it comes to Champions League.
Listen, if they don't win
something.
You're not buying Haaland and keeping all these players to be not prioritising the Champions League and the Premier League.
Yeah.
I mean, if they come away at the end of the season and have only won the FA Cup, it's like having a jam sponge for your wedding cake, isn't it?
Oh, some people like a jam sponge.
Not for the wedding cake.
Why not?
It just can't happen.
No.
You can dress it up all you want, but it's a jam. At the end of the day, it's a jam sponge. It ain't a wedding cake. And so yeah, you're not bringing. It's you know, whenever you win a trophy, it's hard to sort of criticise. But when you're Man City and you have their resources and you've signed those players that we've talked about, and your holy grail is to be the top of the Premier League still and win the Champions League. And they're in a much better position and have been for a while to do this than PSG. PSG have been trying to do it. Yes, they got to the final, were taken apart by Bayern Munich. But Man City every year seem to be in a better position with their squad to go and get it done, but for many and various reasons have failed to do so. And mainly through their own fault, not through their opponents, be it in quarterfinals, semi-finals, or even the final against Chelsea, not by their opponents outplaying them, but by Man City doing something that you sat back and went, what the hell are they doing? You've just thrown it away again, and who's to say that not going to be the case this season, Shaq? And that would be a jam sponge of a season.
If I've ever seen a jam sponge, that's it.
Do you know what jam sponge is, Casey?
I've lived in England a long time.
There you go. It's not Victoria Sponge.
Yeah, but no, don't.
Right, okay. Right, that's enough on City. Let's move on to what else happened in the FA Cup today. Fulham taking on Leeds. Fulham will book a place in the quarter-final. Fulham 2, then Leeds United 0 is how it finishes. Fulham then in tomorrow's FA Cup quarter-final draw. Frank, I know you didn't watch this game, but you just saw the goals. Which was the better one for you?
I love the long shot from the first goal, but the curve from the second one is simply a beauty. So I would go for the second one.
Shaka, we discussed this before and you came up with some nonsense. Would you like to repeat it?
Yeah, I would.
Go on then.
Not as long as that first time.
The strike for the first goal for Paulinia was the better strike, but the build-up was better for the second.
That was abbreviated.
So which is the better goal? Which is the better goal?
Well, that's a matter of personal choice. Do you like build-up or do you like strike? I go for the first.
Choice?
First,
for the
Paulinia.
first
Yes.
one. Yes.
During the live show, you picked the second one.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
You did, didn't you?
No, I
I
didn't.
wasn't listening.
Oh, right, yeah. Standard.
For Leeds, obviously out of the FA Cup, Casey. But they did show some fight today, but as everyone's kind of saying, it's the same old story.
That's the same old story. That's the problem. It didn't matter who the manager is. They keep saying, you know, good performance, but no result. I think they'd rather prefer some bad performances than some good results because it's a results business. Performance is great if that leads to you getting the desired outcome. And that's fine on the odd occasion when you have a good game and you come up against an inspired goalkeeper or just one of those days that you just can't seem to find the back of the net. But when it seems to be week after week of not a bad performance, not a bad effort, you know, but at some stage you have to string some results together. And you thought that maybe at the weekend when they got lucky with kind of the 1-0, that maybe that was going to kickstart new manager. Was that going to kickstart? And once again, good match, bad result.
But it looks like, you know, Javi Gracia's come in. He's not been there long, but certainly on that evidence, it looks like it's going to be equally as chaotic.
Right.
till the end of the season, unless things change. It's not like he's come in and gone, right, OK, the only way we stay up and get results is a complete sea change of how we approach the game. Let's just be difficult to beat, be organised, and we'll take it from there. No, it's like, I tell you what, let's just have more of the same. It's a high-tempo game. It's open. Lots of pace about their play. But when they lose it,
yes,
they are so vulnerable going the other way because they commit so many men forward. And so I haven't seen any change so far in terms of a style from the management change. And let's see if that continues.
Well, I don't want to, by no means piling on Aronson. By Adams.
Oh, no, Case, this isn't. You can't start a sentence like that because we know what's going to happen.
Well, but there's that.
Americans.
But there's the pragmatism that we're talking about. And if you're in a situation where you're 15 yards outside your own box and you have a decision to pass the ball wide or a position to pass the ball centrally, that if it gets picked off, you're then in a spot to concede. I think you have to now, at this stage of the season, make that conscious decision. I'm going to take the safer choice. And I think that's something that I think the Leeds management has to really strike in this end of the season, is really hammer it into the players. Yes, we want to be aggressive and we want to be attack-minded, but there still has to be something that says the safer option at this stage might not be a bad thing.
No.
Losing to a championship side at home, and you look at the Premier League form, you look at the defending Leicester City. I never thought they were going to get dragged back into the relegation battle in the Premier League, but they have been.
Yes.
And on the back of what we're seeing, it's going to be difficult for them to get results.
Still 7-1. The bookies fancy that they'll be safe. The favourites remain Southampton, Bournemouth, and Everton to go down. How concerned would you be with your Leicester house?
I would be concerned, for sure, absolutely. I mean, because I think we see it year in, year out, where there's a team that's in that lower mid-table zone that maybe gets a couple good results and thinks, okay, that's it, we're safe. And the other teams know they're in that fight and continue to pick up points. And before you're now 5 weeks before the end of the season, you're going, wait a minute, how the heck did we get down here? Well, because you took your eye off of it in that moment after you felt you were safe. And I think it was the Spurs result that then was like, okay, yeah, we're fine. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then a couple bad results and a real tight Everton picking up a couple wins in a row, gets them up. Leeds obviously picking up a win. And yeah, it's going to be...
They played really well at Old Trafford and got beat. And they should have been a couple up in 20 minutes because they defensively, and I know they've lost players in that position. You know, previously it was Evans, Soyuncu, Fofana. It's just been a sea change of personnel.
Goalkeeping with Schmeichel leaving.
Schmeichel was one of the best. Schmeichel, one of the most solid goalkeepers around. And now they've got Danny Ward in the league, and tonight it was...
Iverson.
I mean...
Shaka's so proud he got that right.
Well done, Shaka.
I tell you what, I know that sheets would come in.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done for the day now.
Yeah, they're just making so many mistakes at the back. And obviously at the other end as well, you know, Iheanacho's getting the odd goal. Vardy's kind of a sub now, squad player coming on. The recruitment, I don't think the problem for Leicester is Brendan Rodgers. I think the problem was the recruitment in the summer was horrible. Yeah. And we've seen that all year in their performances, particularly in the back line.
But I think after they won the title, they had a good little recruitment from there where you thought that maybe after they won it, there was going to be this huge drop-off. But they stayed consistent. They brought in new players. They were able to keep that level. And I think that's the risk right now. Maybe being just a little too loyal to maybe some players that needed to be changed. But the other problem, if you make those changes and those changes don't work, now you're in big trouble.
Frank, it's interesting you used a phrase there, settle down. How easy is it to do that after winning a trophy?
Well, you're still in the season. I remember winning the League Cup with Chelsea, and you still have some games to play, a lot, because it's in I guess for us it was in April maybe, end of March. So you still have to achieve something, and but you play games by games. You win stuff, and when you belong to a big club like Manchester United, you know that it's never an end. It's always a continuation of games, and So you do this to rest well, to eat well, to sleep well, and to listen to the coach on what he wants. And that is what the player of your Manchester United are doing right now. Game after games, you know, not planning on anything too far away from them. But they did well against Newcastle. They have another game against West Ham tomorrow. Then they're going to play against Liverpool. So it's one after one, and they are professional. And it's why we love, in fact, not calculating, not hoping too much. Newcastle were aiming to win that cup, where Manchester United, it was just an episode of their season. That's the difference between Manchester United and Newcastle now. So they know that they have to do something. They have to finish. Maybe they can win the title if they keep on working like that. So it's always something that you have to cheer up and work with the players or your teammates and say, okay, guys, it's over what we did. I remember when we won the Cup Winners' Cup final, we didn't even celebrate. We went back straight after the game and went back to England from Stockholm, and we prepared the game after and in the weekend. That's what it is when you're a professional player and on the top, where you have to win everything.
Trust me, they've had a few beers.
Oh, sure.
You see his interview, he said, well, they came in yesterday and it was quite obvious. They had a couple of little drams, couple of wee drams. And so, but yeah, look, I don't have an issue with that at all. Celebrate Sunday night, what was a great victory for them, but then pick the baton back up again. You got the FA Cup Wednesday. The team will change. And that's the thing with United now at the moment. It's not the best squad they can have, but it's a squad they can make changes. And I think we'll see that for various reasons. But yeah, I don't see any reason why United can't just go again tomorrow against a West Ham side that haven't particularly travelled well to Old Trafford in recent years. So they did get a good victory against Forest, but it was Forest at home. And so this is a different kettle of fish. So I'm expecting United just to be the same team that they were at the weekend, they were last week against Barcelona, and put this Carabao Cup final behind them.
And you don't want to upset Ten Hag, do you, really?
Well, you don't. And competition's obviously getting better. But, you know, Frankie makes a point that the League Cup happens at a time where there's a lot of season left.
Yeah.
FA Cup, season's over. You know, so there is that concentration factor of saying, yes, let's put it behind us and keep going, which is easier said than done. You know, you look at Real Madrid at the weekend against Atletico, there was all the talk about them still on that high for coming back and having that great result against Liverpool away and unable to replicate the form so recently afterwards. Now, at Chelsea, when they won the League Cup, they're still fighting for championships. When I was at Leicester and you won the League Cup in March, you were then saying, I don't want to get sucked into this relegation fight by thinking the season's already over. So there's that point where you're saying, hey, we just won a cup. We should now be celebrating. No, you have 2 months of the season left to make sure that either at a club like Chelsea, you're fighting for more trophies, or at a club like Leicester saying, don't get sucked into something you shouldn't get sucked into.
Manchester United then against West Ham. Oh, I'm going to play my favourite game tomorrow. Search Craig's name on Twitter as he's commentating. Oh, it keeps me entertained.
I must admit, you do lead a sad life.
The abuse that you get is magnificent. Keeps me going. Just a reminder, we'll be back to reflect on that game and the 3 other ties as well in the FA Cup on the next edition of the show.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.